A year on from Qatar, 2022, what's the legacy of a World Cup like no other? One of the most thrilling, dramatic, and unforgettable contests in the history of the sport will be the 2022 World Cup final. This was the location of Lionel Messi's greatest moment on the soccer field, as he ultimately led Argentina to World Cup success and solidified his reputation as the finest player of his time. For numerous individuals, it was the ideal, fantastical conclusion to a competition that enthralled more than 1 billion spectators globally. Perhaps it was so good that many people forgot it was the preface to the most contentious World Cup ever. When the competition first began, the conversation revolved upon issues that weren't related to the field, such as the treatment of the LGBTQ+ population and workers' rights. In a nearly hour-long outburst, FIFA President Gianni Infantino accused Western critics of racism and hypocrisy in front of hundreds of journalists during a press conference in Doha, just hours before the opening match. Change and reform require time. In our European countries, it took hundreds of years. Everywhere, it takes time. Engaging is the only way to get things done, not yelling, stated Infantino. The FIFA president once addressed the journalists in the room, emphasizing that FIFA will uphold the legacy for migrant workers that it established in collaboration with the authorities in Qatar. He added, "Don't worry, because you will be gone. I'll be back. We'll be here to check." What then is the legacy of the 2022 World Cup, a year after the World Cup final? Human cost of hosting the World Cup. Human rights organizations condemned Qatar's World Cup hosting with no holds barred. According to a 2021 study by Amnesty International, thousands of migrant worker deaths over the previous 10 years had gone uninvestigated by Qatari authorities, despite evidence of links between premature deaths and unsafe working conditions. In the same year that Qatar was granted the World Cup in 2010, there was news that 6,500 migrant workers from South Asia had died there. The study lacked independent verification and failed to link all 6,500 deaths to World Cup infrastructure construction. The person in charge of overseeing Qatar's preparations, Hassan Al-Thawadi, claimed that the Guardian's 6,500 death estimate was a sensational headline that was inaccurate and that the article lacked context. Al-Thawadi subsequently revealed to Piers Morgan that the number of migrant workers who lost their lives while working on any tournament-related project ranged from 400 to 500, which is higher than the number that Qatari officials had originally reported. He highlighted that 37 non-work-related deaths and 3 work-related deaths were particularly connected to the building of World Cup stadiums. The human cost of hosting the World Cup in a nation that had to rebuild much of its infrastructure from the ground up and mainly relied on migrant laborers to labor in the sweltering summer heat is, in all honesty, unknown. Without a doubt, the tournament's stadiums were stunning. While some are presently vacant for extended periods of time, others are utilized for athletic and cultural events. Qatar promised labor reform in the midst of it all, but did it ever happen? Amnesty International declared that the legacy of migrant workers in Qatar was in serious peril a year after the event. Findings that just as the glare of the world's media spotlight dimmed, so too did the Qatar government's push for fair conditions and decent work for the hundreds of thousands of men and women who helped realize Qatar's World Cup dream and will continue to keep the country moving for many years to come, the leading human rights organization stated in a briefing titled "A Legacy in Jeopardy." Amnesty recognized that some of the earlier problems had been resolved. The much-maligned kafala system was eliminated. Workers could now leave the country and change jobs with greater freedom. Workers who made the 2022 World Cup possible must not be forgotten. Amnesty International. In spite of FIFA's and Qatar's assertions of progress, the organization insisted that not enough has been done after the World Cup festivities left town. Amnesty International stated that it has spoken with workers who maintain that the most common type of exploitation is still wage theft and that authorization is still needed to conduct job changes. The International Media Office (IMO) of Qatar, which was established to present an accurate image of Qatar, stated in a statement to CNN that the World Cup hastened changes and created a significant and lasting tournament legacy. The statement went on, "The commitment to defend workers' rights and strengthen Qatar's labor system was never an initiative tied to the World Cup and was always intended to continue long after the tournament ended." A year after the World Cup, Qatar's dedication to labor reform is still strong as ever as we work to create a world-class labor system that draws people from all over the world to live and work in Qatar, the statement continued. Significant progress. Since declaring 13 years ago that Qatar would host the tournament, FIFA has been on the defense. It established the World Cup Legacy Fund in response to the criticism, stating that it will concentrate on children's education in underdeveloped nations while creating a labor excellence hub. FIFA claims that it has kept up its collaboration with regulatory bodies, like the International Labour Organization, ILO, to track advancements in workers' rights. FIFA claimed in a statement to a channel that the competition was the catalyst for these reforms and that it was undeniable that significant progress has taken place in the nation. It did, however, acknowledge the need for additional effort. It further stated, "It is equally clear that heightened efforts are needed to ensure the reforms benefit all workers in the country and that the enforcement of such transformative reforms takes time." In November, the ILO released an updated report outlining the areas in which workers' rights have improved and those that still require improvement. There are so many memories. However, the World Cup will always be remembered fondly by many locals. Reem Al-Haddad, a resident, talked last year about the World Cup's significance to her and the people of Qatar. Al-Haddad's narrative was one of many that were to be featured in the Goals program, an endeavor that sought to highlight the lesser-known World Cup tales and was organized in association with the Sports Creative, Qatar Foundation, Generation Amazing, and Salam Stores. According to program curator Gul Click, every single person gave their time and presented their story without any intervention from the government. A year after her initial interview, the 24-year-old spoke once more to talk about the tournament's legacy in her opinion. "There are so many memories," Al-Haddad said, speaking about the joy of witnessing the World Cup in her home country. "Like meeting all the new people and making new friends with the tourists that came, the cultural exchange and the way that tourists were in love with the culture. I don't know. Everything about the World Cup was unforgettable. I think it was the best time." A year ago, when the competition was in full flow, Al-Haddad preferred to concentrate on how soccer could be a unifying force in resolving cultural issues rather than talking extensively about the widespread criticism of Qatar's human rights record. She now charges people who have attacked Qatar of being hypocritical, citing countries and groups that, in her opinion, have not done enough to support Palestinians during Israel's conflict with Hamas in Gaza. She said, "I don't understand how human rights are being used just for the World Cup and now human rights are like nothing. Every nation in the world has areas where they can grow, and I believe Qatar is doing so in every way," the speaker remarked. Many tourists, she says, departed the tournament with a renewed appreciation for Qatar and the Middle East. She also notes that she has noticed a little rise in visits in the months that have passed. When asked specifically which areas she had noticed progress in, Al-Haddad returned to the topic of sports. She claims that the competition has encouraged the younger generation and that she has never seen so many kids playing soccer. Al-Haddad acknowledged the impact the World Cup had on female athletes and mentioned the several other initiatives she is aware of that promote greater engagement in a variety of sports. "Even my cousins, girls and boys, who had nothing to do with football are now so interested in it and they memorize all the footballer names," she said. "I feel like it's increased the love of football." The IMO said the World Cup was just the start of the nation's sporting ambitions. The infrastructure now in place, including the stadiums, transportation and accommodation, combined with the successful planning and organization of the safest and most accessible World Cup of all time, has affirmed Qatar's credentials as a host for major sporting events, it said in a statement. "We intend to use our current infrastructure to host additional events as part of the ongoing legacy." It further stated that after the nation hosts the Asian Cup early in the next year, a thorough strategy for the stadium's future use is anticipated. Sporting impact on the region. Even if opinions about the World Cup's legacy will continue to differ for years to come, it has undoubtedly introduced the sport to new audiences. The World Cup is scheduled to return to the Arab world in 2034, and Saudi Arabia is the only country to have submitted a proposal to host the event. The country has hosted several important sporting events recently, most notably Formula One and boxing, and its investments in LIV Golf and the Saudi Pro League may have upended the world orders for soccer and golf. After Cristiano Ronaldo joined the Saudi club Al Nassr shortly after the World Cup final, many other well-known players followed suit. The league currently hopes to become one of the biggest globally. Therefore, Saudi Arabia's selection to host the World Cup would be seen as a huge victory. Like Qatar, Saudi Arabia has a history of being accused of exploiting sport to hide purported violations of human rights. The Sports and Rights Alliance, an international alliance of 9 organizations that promote human rights and fight corruption in sports, has asked FIFA to ensure that human rights be safeguarded before the 2034 tournament. It remains to be seen if FIFA complies with that request. At least when it comes to the off-field legacy of Qatar 2022, it may be too soon to tell. After a year, there has been some development, although it might be argued that since the attention has shifted, progress has slowed down. The legacy is easier to see on the field. Currently, several countries in the region are using Qatar 2022 as a model to hold major international athletic events. Additionally, FIFA is not the only sporting body that is keen to investigate fresh prospects, given the quantity of money up for grabs among the Gulf governments. Thanks for being with me. For more news updates, please like, share, comment, and subscribe sportsjin. See you in the next video. Take care, bye.